to make this presentation, so I will try to be very, very brief and as clear as possible to present the French system, and you will certainly see that even if we come from very, very different countries, we can identify a lot of similarities. So what you will see, you can realize that it's very, very similar to the French, sorry, to the Italian, even to the Spanish system. So to start my presentation, I would like to give you just a very, very general overlook on the French education system. And so you have two different branches, of course, general education, and after that, vocational education. And the general system, so I don't want to explain in detail because it's not really a purpose, but you have all these levels, like in Italy and Spain, of course. We start with preschool at 3 years, and after that you have the first official certification at the age of 15 with college certificate, and after that you have all the classical levels, like in all the other countries, general high school, first technological diploma corresponding to EQF level 4, and university with all the university degrees until PhD, like elsewhere. So, but what is more interesting to you is probably the description of vocational education in our country. And you have vocational education guided directly by the Ministry of National Education or Higher Education, plus the compulsory participation of social partners. This tradition of the collaboration between official way represented by different ministries and the participation of social partners is a very, very deep tradition existing in France for many, many years. And after that, you can also have vocational education guided directly by the Ministry of Employment, always together with social partners. And this vocational education guided by the Ministry of Employment is producing professional titles, not professional diplomas, because the term of diploma in France is reserved to national education. And professional or vocational diplomas are larger, much larger than professional titles, because professional titles are much more oriented directly on the function. I will explain it more in details later on. And our organization, CCCA-BTP, is a voice of vocational partners in the implementation of the system. And we collaborate together with the Ministry of National Education and the Ministry of Employment. So our role, very, very quickly, because we are slightly behind schedule, so is to coordinate and implement specifically apprenticeship in the construction industry through institutional governance and pragmatic advice to training centers. And with new French law, we try to open the system and not to be limited only to apprenticeship, but also to all the other possible ways of vocational education. So, unfortunately, I have not time to go more in detail, but I leave the slides, and after that, it will be available on the Icaro website, I hope. So just some figures concerning CCCA-BTP. So we are the first professional network at national level. We intervene among 155 training centers, and the number of apprentices in France now is more or less 55,000, and we collaborate in a very, very close way with 36,000 companies, especially to implement work-based learning. Our apprenticeship is of course, organically work-based learning. And we have within our network 1,200 trainers and also 500 company tutors involved in a very regular manner in the conception and design of our training programs. And we propose training in 7 construction trades. So if you go more in depth concerning vocational education, concerning middle management or proximity management, or technicians, to be closer to Icaro project, we can see that especially 2 professional figures, worksite supervisors, are situated at EQF level 4, so level 5, sorry. And for example, lower middle managements, like team leaders, are situated rather at EQF level 4. This is a very, very general scheme. Of course, we can find a lot of exceptions, but to be as simple as possible, we can keep in mind this very, very general scheme. Of course, when we talk about technicians, construction technicians, we can find many other professional figures, not only worksite supervisors or team leaders, it's obvious. But to have discussion clear, a presentation as simple as possible, I will focus only on these 2 professional figures. And if we go more in depth concerning certification processes and training contents, so you can see when having a look at this grid, when we have diplomas delivered by the Ministry of National Education and professional titles delivered by the Ministry of Employment. And concerning diplomas, for example, for team leaders, EQF4, it would correspond to the diploma of vocational, called Vocational Baccalaureate. And we have the titles like Technician for Organization of Production of Structural Works in the construction sector, Technician for Finishing Arrangements, and Technician for Public Works. And when we switch, for example, to professional titles, we can see that professional titles are much more focused on the direct function. And for example, in the title of the professional title, you have the title of Team Leader for Structural Work. So the difference between diploma and title is diploma is larger, and diploma prepared to many functions, and the professional title is oriented directly on the function. And for this reason, you see worksite supervisor, for example. For worksite supervisors, EQF 5, the diploma is not oriented specifically on worksite supervisors. They will prepare technicians in constructions in reinforced concrete, for example, or building envelopes, structural work, finishing arrangements, and public works. And when we talk about titles, it will be specified in very, very clear work. Then the professional title is addressing worksite supervisors for public works, for example. Yeah? And after that, if we switch to the training content, you can see that the number of hours dedicated to training EQF level 4 is quite huge. For example, almost 2,000 hours if the training lasts 3 years, or 1,350 hours if training lasts 2 years. But if we have a look at the professional titles, this number of hours is reduced to 450, you know. So it reflects this difference between 2 different orientations. The first one very general, and the second one much more professional and immediately operational. But now, the big discussion in France is to be much more detached from the number of hours, because it doesn't make sense anymore when we put forward work-based learning, and we have to take into account only the specificity of each professional profile. So now, of course, we keep in mind the general number of training hours, but it's not the only reference. And now, for example, when we have a look at the certification procedures, we have 3 main certification procedures for concerning diplomas and concerning professional titles. You can find a lot of similarities between 2 systems of certification. So you can have a global final assessment, for example, after training. But now, the new form which becomes ever bigger and more important is progressive evaluation, together with company. And the company tutors can evaluate the progress, and it in a formal way, and their voice is as important, and the voice expressed by the assessors sent by Ministry of National Education, for example. And you can also validate experience and officially, in a formal way, have diploma, even without any formal training. It's possible too. So you can find a lot of links with the Spanish system. And for the professional titles, it's more or less the same. So the results of evaluation are based mostly on the observation of professional behavior in concrete work situations. After that, of course, we also evaluate the progress during the training process. So we try to evaluate not only the final learning outcomes, but also the conditions in which these outcomes were acquired. So once again, this bridge between learning situations and concrete work situations, and the recognition of work situations, our recognition of the educational value of work situations. This is our main concern for the time being, of course, and also official recognition, formal recognition on non-formal paths leading to competencies. So I tried to be as fast as possible. Of course, it's a very, very general presentation. And if you have questions, or if you need more information, so please don't hesitate to contact me at this email address.